Oh. Right. Alright, well, I've just looked at the last thing I recorded, the kind of diary type thing. Ramble to myself. And I just don't know, I just thought I'd just go straight into the next thing that I wanted to do. It was a bit windy, but I don't think it ruins the audio that much. And also, I'm not that bothered. I'm not into editing and making things pretty and special. Just gonna bloody, oh look, that's well frozen. That's super frozen. Step on that. That is ice. That is good. Get some skates, come down here. Yeah, I'm just gonna do it right away. I'm just walking home, but not really home. And hold on. What I'd like to talk about is this book. That's probably going to be back to front, isn't it? That's fine. This is Alfred Bester's The Deceivers. And, well, I could have probably, you know, at a few stages recorded myself chatting to myself about some of the books that I've already read. But there's something weird about wanting to have it and to hold it. And I didn't have them when I had other opportunities to do it, so I didn't want to. But now it's here, it was in my pocket, now it's in my hand. I had seen a few people talk about Alfred Bester. I'd heard his name, I'd seen a few of his books in like halls, unboxing halls, and people vaguely talking about or reviewing. I can't remember if I've seen a full review of one of them, but obviously it's Stars My Destination. Is that the one that Tiger? It's the same book. That's a big one by him. What else? The Demolished Man. I don't know if I can think of any others that I know. Like I know vaguely the plot or the story of them. But I'd known about him. And I found this one in a bookshop I was in Cornwall, I was in Porthleven. Not a bookshop, a charity shop. They had quite a few cool things novelling around. I bought a few books. They had a big bin full of science fiction and fantasy. I bought a few of like what seemed really good. But the reason I bought this one, not only the cover, which I just thought was really cool, the blurb. What's the proper word for blurb? I don't know. Anyway, it reads brilliantly, and it definitely, well, for me, it makes you think I've got to read this. Rogue Winter, king of the Maori commandos, cruises the seedy solar circuit from the paradise of carnal pleasures to the torture chambers of the asteroid Triton in search of his kidnapped lover, Demi Giroux. Kidnapped by the demonic Manchu Duke of Death, Demi is a pawn in the struggle for control of the metacrystals, a secret source of unlimited energy lying deep beneath the surface of Triton. It's a little bit more, but that gives you enough. So after reading it, that's not necessarily the most accurate summary of the story, but it's pretty close. It sounded fun and it sounded slightly funny, so I picked it up, also because I'd seen that it was from the 80s. I think it's 1983. Got to swap hands, the other hand is freezing. I think it's 1983 that this was published, and I thought, okay, Alfred Bester, Stars My Destination, I think is a 50s, like mid 50s or something. I I can't remember if that's his first novel or if there's something else. So I thought, well, he's an author people quite like. And one of his most popular books is released almost 30 years before this one. I sort of feel like there's a general trend to how science fiction writers change across those few decades. You have the kind of like the 70s new wave thing, don't you, that people talk about. That's where PKD comes into his own and is at his most sort of popular, most shocking for people. So that was what drew me to it. The cover looked great, it sounded great, and the fact that it was kind of a later novel for him, I was thinking, alright, it sounds crazy, because it probably is crazy, because he's kind of changed into a more relaxed tone, caring less about what it is that's coming out. And that, I would say, is probably true of the book. I've not read anything else by him, so I can't really compare like the tone and the style of his other books, but I think it's a safe assumption that it will be fairly different to his earlier stuff. It is funny. Is it a comedy? Not really, but it is meant to be light-hearted and funny, I'm sure. It's not a rom-com, but it's not really romantic, but it is a love story. It's just fun. I think I really enjoy those science fiction books that are fun for the sake of it, because ultimately there's something fun about science fiction, more than fantasy, but fantasy can be fun. You know, inherently it is going to be out there, and out there is going to be maybe wacky or maybe silly. So I think my favourites are wacky, silly, sci-fi, funny sci-fi. I don't really know if you can even call lots of Kurt Vonnegut sci-fi. Just briefly paused to reset myself again. Someone was running past me. Not just that it's quite awkward to talk while someone's moving past you, but I also would have to hide the camera from him, and that, so as not to get him in there, and that's a bit weird. He'll wonder, what am I talking about? He'll think I'm talking about immigrants or something. He'll think I'm ranting for Facebook, which I'm not. Kurt Vonnegut, I'm not really sure. Yeah, Kurt Vonnegut is science fiction. Some of it's less so though, but it's not like magical realism, which you kind of called some of the less sci-fi, but that's not really the extent of what you'd call that. What's sort of Murakami, sometimes not sci-fi, but not quite. I've not read it, Hard Boiled Wonderland. That's on my that's probably the next Murakami I'd read. But the others are not really sci-fi at all. Anyway, that's a total fucking detour in my mind. Completely broke my brain talking about that. Kurt Vonnegut. Wacky, silly is the point. And I like those things. And the Philip K. Dick that I've liked more is weird to the extent of being, I'd say, like slightly wacky. And this is, maybe it's not wacky, I don't know. It depends how you read some of it, I think, because some people might read something like this thinking or feeling that it should be more serious, and when it's not, that would seem detrimental. You know, like kind of the weird people's names are weird, and they sort of keep making references and jokes, and if they were hoping it would be more serious, it's like the tone that was expected has been ruined. But I think once you get into this book right away, you can tell that it's not supposed to be that serious. I can't even tell if the whole thing is from the perspective changes. It's from the perspective of one of the characters telling the story from what they remember, but it's constantly mostly from about a character she's barely ever with. So it's supposed to be that they've told her what the two main characters were up to the whole time. And anyway, one of those things where you've just got to believe that even though it's not really believable that this person would know what was going on, they do. And that's a thing where, and I think a few science fiction books I've read do this, where if there's lots of, like Kurt Vonnegut is constantly talking to the reader, basically, not that directly, but his narrator, a few times, he's Kilgore Trout, isn't he? He's a writer, and he's writing these books, and it's like, well, are you just telling me right away that none of this is true, none of this is real? I mean, even though I know it's not true and it's real because it's a story and it's a book, but for some people I can imagine having that broken down is taking something away from it. You want to be convinced of the story that you're reading, but then there's lots of books where they're not really even trying to convince you that it's real or true, and if it's constantly full of jokes and references, it's not trying to engross you, and this is definitely one of those books. There's constantly asides that are the narrator talking to you directly because she's telling you this story. But because it's kind of a romance, or it's a love story, that kind of lends to it. Kind of. Keep saying that. That lends to it, because a love story is meant to be fun, isn't it? It is also meant to be sort of not true. That's kind of part of it, because it's private. How people sort of meet and fall in love and what they do in their private romances are always going to be private, aren't they? So when you're telling a love story, it always should be a little bit of a lie and an embellishment, or a fun version. That's quite a good way of explaining this book, actually, I'd say. The sci-fi side of it, it's one of these where it never really tries to explain anything that much, how anything technologically advanced works or operates. It doesn't even massively hint of stuff that's weird and bizarre. Most of the time, it feels like where you are is just kind of New York. And it is in New York, but like any New York now, in the 50s, in the 20s, wherever, it's kind of like a timeless setting that this is in the future, they're going to other planets, but it's never going in depth about a specific spaceship or a specific machine or anything. That's not the point. And I really enjoy that. The language is really interesting and weird. It's always going into sort of French, but it's like a broken up French, and it briefly explains that at a point where it's a sort of a space agey language, where it is a butchered version of French. I think that's what I got out of it. But the characters themselves make lots of references to old things. They reference myths, legends, a lot of Greek mythology, I think. There's so many things, names that people call each other, and I don't really know what they are, to be honest. But I got the gist, and I like it. They're a little hard to believe, the two main characters. They're a little bit weird and almost too quirky, but they become, or for me, they became more understandable towards the end of the book, and I rooted for them. Those crazy kids. It's basically this cool, crazy guy. He's a bit of an organizer. He's kind of a criminal. Doesn't explain that too much. He's a journalist. He's almost psychic, detective. It's left quite open-ended and in the air because it's kind of malleable, and he falls in love with an alien, a strange kind of alien. She's highly recommend it. I would, and I would read some more Alfred Bester. I've not really seen other people talk about this one. I'm sure lots of people have read it. I don't really, as much as I know, I don't know that much about what else was going on around the early 80s in science fiction. Philip K. Dick was still pumping out things in the early 80s, I think, I'm sure. I don't know. I'll be trying to have a look for similar things, because it was just really fun to read. And yeah, what more to say? Nothing, I don't think. Is that a review of a book? I don't know. I've not really said anything about the plot. There's not much. It's not too much of a plot in the best way for me. There's lots of just sort of like silly ideas thrown in and things that he seems to have thought of, but they don't feel out of place, because this kind of world that he's creating, anything crazy and wacky seems to fit. And a lot of the times he'll be describing something, you sort of feel like it's not as he's describing it, he's just describing it like that, in a sort of fun, flirty way. I would comment about something strange and conflicting about it. So in this future, loads of planets and moons are colonised, and the only way to colonise them is by creating domes, sealed, living domes, because you can't terraform or change the atmosphere in this world. It seems quite likely you'll be able to land on a rogue moon with a completely different atmosphere, drop my thing, and make it livable. So live in these domes. And there's domes that sort of represent all different countries and parts of the world, and they have sort of like strong racial divides, and the big one is a kind of East Asian combination dome, or it's the planet, sorry, and there's multiple of these domes that are like enormous cities and things, and the main group are a combination of Japanese and Chinese people, and it's kind of got this twist on a slur as their combined name, which I don't know if I feel comfortable saying it out loud. you might be able to, you'll probably figure out what it is, and if you read it you would see what it is. Yeah, it's difficult because when I'm reading it, immediately it's like, well, it's a bit funny. But then, obviously knowing sort of his age when he was writing it, the time he was writing it, an old thing is quite likely to be a bit racist, sexist, homophobic, and you just kind of deal with it, or try and understand where it's coming from. It never in this book feels really nasty. Nothing seems really overly offensive and mean. It's just the way it is. And if anything, I'd say that no one is safe. The kind of the Western white planetary world is also sort of not made fun of, but you know, no one's been tried to paint in like a good light and a bad light. The enemy is not really the enemy, they're just kind of the other. Maybe it's a bit clumsy. I'm sure some people would read it and be a bit offended by it. I don't think I'd call any of it racist, but that's probably worth mentioning before telling someone to go off and read it. I'd say, you know, someone would probably find it lots more funny than I found it, some of the things, and they're probably not as funny as they might think they are. Aside from that, there's nothing really bad in it, there's nothing really upsetting in it, there's nothing so weird that it's disturbing and uncomfortable. It is a pretty fun and light-hearted book, and I give it a big thumbs up. Alfred Bester, The Deceivers. Great lead, great main character. Really just one of those characters you like. Yeah, if that was a little series, I would definitely pick up and read the other ones, see what they're up to, and the side characters. Brilliant. I don't feel like I want to give it some sort of rating or something. Yeah. All right. Peace and love. If anyone's gotten here, you're mad listening to me. Some blue tits up there. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.